We're bringing you lots of big announcements this week, including some brand new games and expansions, as well as a special board game related store that's going to be opening up in New York City.
And this week's topic is all about Fantasy Flight's World Championship, including the big announcement they made for LCGs. I'm Will Keeler.
I'm Jonathan Estes, and this is the Roll for Crit podcast.
So, one of the most popular games around is Pandemic. If you haven't played it, we both suggest you try it out. In the game, you pretty much try to stop diseases from destroying the world. There have been 2 expansions, each one adding difficulty challenges. One adding a 5th disease, another one adding bioterrorist, anything to make the game harder than it already is. Now, they've announced a new expansion, Pandemic State of Emergency. Now, this is probably going to add many things, but there's 3 main things that they've mentioned. 1, diseases are going to be spreading from animals to humans. So we're not sure what that means, but that means pretty much bird flu is around now. 2, they're gonna have much more unpredictable events in which you have to try to quarantine them now. So that might be a whole new board and style. And finally, the 5th disease, which is added in the previous expansions, will be on the board, but you cannot treat it. You can't do anything to it until you've cured it, which means you gotta run really fast and make sure that doesn't just keep spreading and destroying everything.
That basically makes that your first and most important goal.
Well, when saying that description, they literally say, not for the faint of heart.
I thought you were gonna say that you could never cure it. You just had to.
Well, yeah, no, actually the way it was worded, that's what I actually thought at first. So I thought so how do you win?
It just stays in the field forever. It's a message about life. I think the most amazing thing about this expansion is that there are so many Pandemic games now, including these spin-offs. There's Pandemic
Contagion.
There's also The Cure, the dice game.
There's Legacy coming out.
Right, they're doing Pandemic Legacy. Clearly, this is their franchise, which is
first of all, we've played it a lot. We have to admit, even though it's one of those, it's a cooperative game, which means it's easy to get everyone to play it. It's difficult. We still played a lot. One thing I am curious about with this is because we just found this out recently. We just recently got the expansions for the game. And it turns out pretty much all of them fit into one box.
Right.
We were amazed. We've never seen games do this before. So I'm wondering whether this be just a little, and the box sizes don't change either. So I'm wondering whether this will be the same. They'll somehow get it all to fit still.
I hope so. I think they can
in the
pull
next
it
box.
off.
Yeah, I think it's possible. They probably have to make it just a teeny bit bigger. I mean, right now the box it's like a little bit off the edge, just fitting all the boards, but really it all fits in there.
The original expansions were all the same size box, right? So yeah, maybe they might have to go a little more. But
also, one thing I do like, we've noticed this with Contagion in particular and the expansions. They do put a lot of detail even into the small things to make it look like. You get PG dishes in the games, in the expansion. And you put stickers on them that actually say do not, if in leaking, please contact emergency.
They do a good job with making it thematically fun.
That's why I think the reason why there's all the expansions. They put the work into it that we expect from a game.
It's one of those games that's been around forever, it seems like, but it holds up. There's a reason it's a classic.
And also, it's one of those horror things that will always be plaguing humanity, pun intended.
We're looking forward to that. Guess what? I got another expansion for you.
Oh, really? What is it?
I do. Well, it was recently announced very vaguely on the Board Game Geek forums that the next expansion for Marvel Legendary, which, following the pattern, will be a 100-card small box expansion for the Villains set, I believe, is going to be called Fear Itself. And it will be based on the Fear Itself Marvel Comics storyline, which occurred in 2011.
Now, if I'm correct, the whole plot of that storyline, spoilers, was the giant snake, I forget what it's called, in the Thor world, what are theirs?
Yes, the Asgardians.
Asgardians, thank you. Awoken and sent down mystical hammers down to Earth. And multiple characters, including, I think, Juggernaut's the one I remember in particular, picking him up, and they pretty much just rage across the world.
I don't know about all that nonsense.
Oh, okay. I expect you to know. You should know more on me on the Marvel front.
I have not. I guess I probably did read some Fear Itself comics, but never I probably just read the Spider-Man tie-ins, not the main. Of course. Mm-hmm.
But
yeah, no, it's the Serpent. I think he has a name, but they call him the Serpent Asgardian. And yeah, so It dealt with Thor and Captain America, I know a lot. But of course, if this is, I'm pretty sure this is for the villains set. So I guess all the playable characters will be different serpents and Asgardian demons and
Well,
stuff.
it might be the people who actually are wielding the hammers. Because
That I didn't know about that.
I don't know I can't remember how many hammers there were. I think there.
But I think what's cool about it is that, I mean, this is the first expansion they put out that's actually based on a storyline, not just a theme or a set of characters. So it opens up the door for maybe, there's going to be a Civil War box. Or
Well, the thing I think they really should. The problem is Civil War is already sort of in. I think they need a big box should be is actually the Phoenix Force. The X-Men versus Marvel. Not X-Men versus, Avengers arc.
I like the segue you're pre-plotting right now.
Well, I think that's because it's pretty much, you can have the X-Men, I don't know, maybe you can actually make a dual way when you actually fight each other, like you can only take, one person gets X-Men cards, the other Avengers or something, like.
That would be really cool.
I think that would be really interesting. And plus the Phoenix form characters could all somehow do weird things because, of course, the Phoenix Force.
There's definitely a lot of avenues they could go down.
I mean, it's comics. There's plenty of stuff they can do.
So there's really no other details.
Right.
It's very early announcement, but we're just excited.
Yeah. So as you were saying, related point, WizKids has announced a new X-Men game. This game called XMen Mutant Revolution has four players take on one of the roles of one of the main mutants. As you can guess, probably if you know anything about mutants, it's Wolverine, Cyclops, Storm, or Magneto. And pretty much you go around the world recruiting mutants to join your cause, and because each person has their own ideals. And it's like fighting each other and getting control of mutant and dealing with, humans, or what, do they just call them humans? Like non-mutants?
They just call them humans.
Humans,
Normies. Muggles.
Yes.
And this is not, even though it's from WizKids, this is not a CCG or miniatures.
Right.
This is a board game. So that's kind of a neat thing.
When looking through, I actually looked through what it said it came with it. Pretty much everything's tokens besides the cards for the main characters. I'm a little disappointed there because I think what they could have done, which would have been really cool.
Miniatures that you collect. And buy.
No, but like in the game, there'd be like a deck of cards. Maybe this can come later. And like you can get the special mutants. Like, okay, I got Cyclops and he gives me this. Like you can actually get it's sort of like sub-commanders or something. Like I think the mutants are just literally a token. It's not like they have powers, but you could I got Beast on my side. I got Toad, magic, armor.
As it is now, you just pick one of those.
That's what it seemed like.
And then you get
the rest are just or you just get pretty much an army. But I think it'd be cool if you can get some of the other ones and they could do special things like, as long as I have Emma Frost, everyone has to reveal their hand or something. Or
well, we'll see. I mean, we'll see depending on how popular it is. Maybe we'll get expansions.
Because I feel X-Men work perfect for that idea. Because literally, there are so many mutants.
Yeah, there's a billion X-Men they can throw in that way. So
because that's what make the deck could always be huge, and you never know who you're going to draw and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah.
That's a cool one. Definitely another Marvel game to look forward to.
I would not be surprised if there's some promo be like, if you get this early, there's a Dice Master special version of each one.
Probably will happen since it is WizKids and they like to do that kind of thing. That's all our new games we have to announce. There's still plenty more news, don't worry. If you like Munchkin, and I know you do, we got a weird and crazy announcement this week. They're actually going to be opening for 3 days only, as of now, a store in New York City called Munchkin World. It's going to be in Manhattan, and they're going to be you can look up the exact address and the links in our show notes. But they're going to be selling all kinds of Munchkin merchandise. It's for 3 days, February 13th to 15th in 2015.
They know they're going for lonely people.
Perfect to take your date to on Valentine's Day weekend. And if you go, Steve Jackson's going to be there, as well as John Kovalik, the artist for Munchkin, and some other special guests of Steve Jackson games will be there. So
I actually know 2 other people who hopefully will be there.
Probably us.
Yeah.
We will probably, how could we not?
Of course.
For the site, since we're so close to New York, so it should be kind of cool. First, when I read it, I thought they were opening a full-time Munchkin store, and I was like, what?
The idea of opening up a store for only certain days, I think that's actually pretty common in outside of the United States.
Yeah, they call it a pop-up store.
Yeah. I think Munchkin is perfect for that. There's plenty. Like we can never keep up with Munchkin. I mean, to be out there, it's perfect for you to snag like that one odd thing that's there.
And they're probably going to be giving away, or not giving away, but selling or stuff that isn't out yet for general release.
Well, not only that, that's probably a good place where you can get T-shirt, the bookmarks, the weird stuff. I think it's the perfect game for it.
Do you think there's any chance they're testing the waters to see if they want to do a store somewhere?
I do think that's pretty possible. They're probably gonna. I think that's why they're opening in New York. They're seeing how many people come. I think it is a very good idea for a Munchkin store. They could probably also sell other games as well, but like to actually have maybe even in Toys R Us, they get a room there. Because you've been to the Toys R Us in New York. Mm-hmm. You know how there is the Lego area. There's the Jurassic Park that isn't Jurassic Park anymore, even though it has the T-Rex there. But like, can you imagine like there was just a place the Munchkin area?
Well, I mean, Steve Jackson Games by itself definitely has enough for its own store, and I think it would be great to have a place like a mainstream big board game place like that in the city. Because, I mean, there isn't outside of like Fantasy Flight's headquarters and like places headquarters. There aren't really any. Really well known, there's the Steve Jackson store like there is the Disney store or Lego store.
However, I will note, if I see him there, I am going to beg him to bring back Dino Hunt.
Bring Dino Hunt to get it signed.
Yes! Oh my God, yes! That is exactly what I'm doing.
So look out for us there in February. That'll be exciting.
Well, also Steve Jackson. You should probably look for him too, because he's the one actually.
Well, we'll be there.
I mean, maybe you can look, but these are the real celebrities you want to look out for.
Yeah.
Well, on to
what else we got?
If one of the most popular shows on TV is South Park, and they've been on for when did they start?
They're in their season 23 or something.
Yeah. And recently, last week of this episode of our releasing this episode, they released an episode about freemium play games, in which the entire episode revolves around how they're not actually free, and we won't spoil it for you. It was probably, we agree, one of the best episodes so far in the season.
Definitely the best of the season.
Yeah. So far. I mean, but at the end of the episode, Stan, the one who is dealing with these games, this problem, his addiction, along with his grandfather, decide to fight their demons by playing board games instead. Which is the surprising thing is they didn't just use they make up their own titles, or they didn't just use Monopoly or something. They actually brought Zombicide, Crossroads,
Dead of Winter,
Dead of Winter, Crossroads. What were some of the other ones?
They had King of New York,
King of New York,
which isn't even out yet. Lords of Waterdeep, and there was one other one that was like obscured that I still don't know what it is. But yeah, it was crazy to see modern, popular board games on a mainstream show.
I mean, we don't know whether this means a sign that game's moving forward. Maybe just the creators of South Park were just like, we like board games, we're putting this in.
Now, so I saw, and I didn't remember this. I mean, I don't know if I ever noticed it, but apparently there was also a Cthulhu episode from a while back where they had you could see Arkham Horror games. Part of it.
Wow.
So apparently, I guess they
must be big board games. Yeah,
are actually into board games, which is really cool.
Yeah. And it was also great because the action figures were like, okay, roll 6 and you can kill the zombie.
Oh yeah, and also the episode is the dice were like this big because the animation, but it was neat. It had nothing to do with the episode.
But I mean, it's just cool to see that in TV.
It was really cool. So that was a fun tidbit. That was a fun thing to catch. One more piece of news for you this week we're going to end on a downer.
Remember when we were talking about how someone cheated in Magic the Gathering?
Well, it happened again. Earlier in the month, there were the Ticket to Ride World Championships. We actually talked about it on our show. They were streamed live and everything. And they were held in Paris, and people from all around the world were gathered. Well, it turns out that the winner of the game, the actual world champion, was found to have achieved his goal through dishonest methods. And in fact, the way they found this out was because the game was being streamed, there's actually people online who were watching, and after the end of the game, they started counting up the scores, and based on the number of turns they both had and the number of trains on the board at the end of the game, it was impossible for the scores to be what they were. And it turns out that, in fact, this guy had been, his name we'll go unmentioned, had been either some combination of taking extra turns and just no one paid attention to it, or drawing more cards than he was supposed to without anyone noticing. And there was a judge there, but they didn't say anything. And there was so first Days of Wonder put out a press release actually calling this cheating and saying they're taking his title away. Then the guy himself actually posted a little thing on his blog, like a statement where he said he was really tired and anything he did was accidental. Then the guy he was playing against, who was the American, I believe it was the American player who actually won.
Wait, the one who's cheated or
the new champion.
Okay.
I don't know if it was the same guy. The guy he was cheating against in that game.
Yeah.
He may have done this multiple times, we don't know. But he put out a whole statement then also saying, no, he was definitely cheating and like, I noticed this and all this stuff. So there's it seems like there's still a little bit of vague miscommunication going on, but needless to say, something happened that shouldn't have happened.
Yeah, I'm shocked because I remember we watched a little bit and there was a guy how did they miss that? Because in particular, like for example, the card drawing. Like when we play, I know for example, it's not just give me two, it's draw one, and then you think like, I'm impressed that he got away with.
He it was like, let me just draw one from the top of the deck, and he just took three.
Right.
But what I read is that I think usually, I don't know why they didn't in this game, a judge or a referee or whatever gives them their cards.
Yeah, I mean, at what I'm also surprised because with Magic, the one which we talked about before, I can little understand more because usually there's like 20 games happening at the same time.
Right.
So usually, and the way he's shuffling like this, it's not something you'd expect. I'm surprised the guy was able to do it. This is literally, they're like maybe 3 games maybe happening. This is the championship. This is like the top from every country.
Yeah.
And like, I'm really shocked.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely seems sloppy and surprising in multiple ways that someone would even think to cheat at Ticket to Ride. And
oh no, please! If there's a tournament and there's a prize online, people will cheat.
So that's 2 scandals, like 2 weeks or 3 weeks apart.
Well, I think also because all the tournaments just happened. That's likely to happen.
Well, we're gonna start talking about Fantasy Flight's tournament, so hopefully they got everything on lock there. But I hope this isn't the start of a trend, and it's a little disturbing. But
I think it sort of is, but that's not a talk for this show.
Yeah, we'll get that.
I mean,
somewhere else.
You can tell us your thoughts.
Yes, you can, but do so later on. First, you're gonna have to listen to us give you our Kickstarter Pickstarters.
So, for my Kickstarter Pickstarter, I come to show you Dragonflame. Now, many of you have probably played the game when you're the knight, the warrior, the wizard, and you have to fight off all the monsters, including a dragon. Now, some of us, including me, wish we could be said dragon. This game is for you. In this game, you play the dragon and you raid multiple castles and getting treasures, princesses, special items, so on and so forth.
It's a Trogdor simulator.
Sort of, yes. But what's sort of cool about it, the way it works is, like, if we were playing, like if I went first, I play cards face up showing what items are. You might be able to play some face down, so we don't know what's in the castles. So we actually decide what goes into what castle.
Interesting, but we're all dragons.
Yes, and then also you can get cards that's Dragonflame, which you use not for points, but to raid villages. And whoever burns the village the most gets the points from that village.
Is it a 2-player only or multiple players?
I believe it's just 2-player, but it could be more. I'm gonna have to double. That's the one thing I'm totally forgetting right now because they only showed 2.
Probably competitive.
It's actually made from Minion Games, which actually have done a lot of Kickstarters. I think almost all of them are successful, which is pretty cool. And it's only $25, and the game looks, the artwork looks nice, the pieces look great. I know their first, one of their first stretch goals is actually, once again, one of my favorite things to see now is upgraded stock, game components. Because I actually just got another Kickstarter, Lagoon, and this is the first time I saw, they got a bunch of upgraded components, and I showed them to you, they're really nice.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's always a good incentive.
Yeah. So for a game for just $25, and if you like dragons and stuff, this is definitely the game to look for.
Dragonflame. How can you go wrong?
Yeah.
Mine this week is called The Hen Commandments. This is for all those of you who've always wanted to be a hen. This is a weird party game for a bunch of people where basically there's a hen god, bear with me, and each turn 6 words are going to be laid out on the table, and together they'll form some kind of a sentence. And everyone has virtue cards in their hands, such as whatever they are, honesty or something like that. And you decide what virtue you think applies to the sentence that appeared on the board. Everyone puts their card face down. Then everyone flips over. Anyone who had matched someone else, so who put the same virtue in, they become judges. If you had a unique virtue, you now have a debate with the other ones, and you have to make your case to the judges as to why you think that sentence applies to your virtue, and what your particular idea of this hen religion is.
Pretty much the entire game is you're actually making 10 commandments.
Right.
Except they're all chicken related.
Right. And so once there's 10 commandments, whoever has the most wins or whatever. So yeah, it's definitely a silly, weird idea for a game. Very goofy. They said great idea for a drinking game, which sounds like it would be true. It was designed by Andrew Sheeran, who they hail from the UK, which means if you want this game, it costs you £20. I think £5 extra if you're outside of the UK, so you can do the currency transition if you need to. But it seems like a really funny, weird idea that is the kind of thing that we would play and laugh at.
Yeah, actually, this is close to my other Kickstarter Pickstarter for this week. And I was like, I want to be a dragon, but this one just sounds unique, it sounds hilarious. I mean, you're making a religion in the silliest of ways.
Yeah.
It's a perfect combination.
Hens, dragons, what more do you need?
Yeah.
But that's it.
Yeah, I think that's for now. That's our Kickstarter Pickstars. I think it's time for our topic of the week. So, starting last week of this episode airing, Fantasy Flight Games, one of the biggest game publishers out there, had their World Championships, in which they had a lot of championships for their games, mainly their LCGs.
And X-Wing, Game of Thrones, all those games, yeah.
But during this time, and it's still going on now, as
we speak, it is when this episode airs, it should be over. So we don't know the winners yet, but you might when this airs.
Right. They also announced last Wednesday a big, huge announcement about LCGs, which they called the LCG State of Union. In this announcement, they pretty much announced how they've decided they've realized their LCGs are big enough and popular enough that they actually start cycling out pretty much sets of them. So new players don't have to look at hundreds and thousands of cards and be like, I don't know how to build a deck. If you're familiar with any kind of trading card game, like Magic or Yu-Gi-Oh, for example, you probably already understand this idea. Pretty much, you have 3 sets in the standard gameplay for tournaments, and that way you only look at those. This is really good for tournament gameplay, especially now that they're big enough, in my opinion, because I played Magic, and what happens if you don't do that is usually maybe 3 decks will always be there. What you're doing now is by cycling them out, people have to restart all over again. Granted, it's going to be really quick to find those winning decks again because of the internet. It used to be long ago that you actually had to wait a while before people really found that. But this is really good news for LCG players, especially doing pro. If you're not, it doesn't really hurt. This doesn't hurt you that much because you can still use whatever cards you want, unless you play the Game of Thrones LCG. Would you like to tell them what's happening with the Game of Thrones LCG?
Well, if you're a fan of the Game of Thrones LCG, throw it out! Because they also announced that they are making Game of Thrones 2nd edition. So not only will Game of Thrones be enacting this rotation policy, they're also doing an entirely new version of the game with new artwork and reworking a lot of the mechanics heavily. So a lot of like the keywords will be changed, some of the way that getting currency works in the game. You've played some of it.
I have.
Not yet.
I will say what I have played is it is a lot of fun multiplayer. If the decks are balanced, which we found they usually are, as long as we use one person's collection, most of the decks are balanced. It's a lot of fun because what you do in multiplayer compared to two-player is each round you actually get a little card. I don't know if they're going to change these as well, which could be like the Hand of the King, Master of Whispers, and they do special things. But they also say things like, you serve the Master of Whispers, meaning if someone takes that card, you cannot attack them. Or you oppose this person, which means you want to attack them. So it's this fun little political, like, I want to choose this so he can't attack me then.
So what do you think, because I know like some of the changes are, have you experienced moribund timing?
No, I have not, or at least I don't know that.
Apparently there's a lot of weird timing issues is one of the things that they found, where there's cards you can play at different times and it's can be ambiguous.
Actually, yes, I have sort of, like not, I've noticed that a lot with Lannister's house. They had a lot more, at least out of the deck I played with his had a lot more, I'm going to say, just because the term magic comes to mind with control, like they had more like playing things in response to stop people. And they had, at least his deck had that a lot more. I played with that one, Targaryen, and is Baratheon the squid people?
No, but sure.
What's the squid house?
I don't remember. It's not Baratheon, but...
But those are the three I've played with so far. I can understand how they can rework some of the keywording and stuff, fix that up, just polish it. I'm guessing also artwork-wise, they're probably going to make things somewhat a little bit closer to the TV show.
I wonder about that. I don't
No, they're going
know.
to keep the artwork. Well,
yeah.
The one in particular I know is the dwarf.
Yeah.
Does not look anything.
Well, because in the books, he's like supposed to be very unattractive and gross, and of course in the show he's like the hottest dwarf ever. But yeah, but I feel like they would try to still keep some of that. I don't know, because it seems
no,
like,
they're gonna. I'm sure they're gonna keep the artwork and not like make it like we're just taking scenes from the show. That's two different things.
Yeah, maybe a little.
Like that's what I meant, like touch up, like.
But yeah, so a lot of that timing thing, they're rework. There's a lot more. You can read all the stuff on our site that they were changing a decent, basically streamlining everything a lot more, and making it easier for people to get into the game. So why don't we? Well, let's finish up on Game of Thrones, and then we'll jump back to LCGs.
Okay.
So, Game of Thrones. I mean, that's good, but it means if you have the first edition, you're going to be out of luck sooner rather than later because.
Well, we should first of all.
Of course.
First of all, we should announce that this second edition will be coming out a year from now, pretty much. It's going to be released at next year's Board Game Geek
Gen Con.
Oh, Gen Con.
Which is so. By the way, we already know next Gen Con is going to be the Magic board game and the second edition of this.
So we already got two big comers.
Two huge games coming out there. So so there's still, and they said that the first edition will be acceptable in tournaments. They're still going to be holding events for it in the near future. Once again, when more news comes out of this, we'll probably find out whether this is like you have to change everything about this, or whether you can maybe mix and match.
Yeah,
I doubt it, but we'll see.
We'll see.
I mean, I was honestly surprised. The game is a lot older than I thought. So it actually still seems like to me the right time to do a second edition.
No, it does. The only reason that stinks is the friend
Thanks for correcting your language.
The friend who I said I played the game with bought it like a month ago. Like it was just.
Yeah. I mean, the good news is you can always play that with it if you want. It doesn't. It's really only if you're in
the tournament play,
or if you're one of those people like us who are really, you want to have the latest official thing.
We need it all.
But it's not like the first game is invalid. It's still a game. But yeah, so mix and match. That's not the word I wanted to use anyway. But so back to LCGs then, the rotation. I feel like you were giving it a very positive spin, which I think is the right way to look at it. But I do think there's the flip side.
Oh no, everything has its plus and minuses.
Which is the same thing, where now every time you buy an expansion, well, in a year, this won't mean anything to me.
Right. Well, this is the issue once again with Magic. With Magic, for example, especially it's more so important now. It's not as bad with LCGs, but like for Magic, any card that's random packs, it's like, all right, I spend $200 to make this deck, and and that's actually relatively cheap now for a standard deck. It's gonna be useless in a few, in a year. But I feel like it's not as bad at least in my head. I don't play this living card games professionally. It's not as bad because I feel I'm still buying a full set of these.
Sure.
Like, it comes a full play set. I don't have to go through pack after pack or buying a really expensive singles usually.
Well, I think it's a worry, a fear for some people that this is the start of, they go to LCGs to avoid the stuff that comes with CCGs, and they might be worried that it's now heading down a path closer and closer to that.
Well, I can understand that fear, but I feel the difference is then it wouldn't be an LCG anymore. Because if they didn't do the cycling, you'd still be buying each new expansion.
That's true.
The only difference is you have to make new decks out of what you have now. The biggest fear, like I said, is with randomness in singles. Because Magic, I don't know about the other ones, but I know Magic singles is literally a stock market now.
Right.
Like, their prices go up and down. You have to know, like, during pre-release, you should get some rares and sell them before the regular release, because then they'll drop in price. I don't see that happening with LCGs as long as they keep them to the same thing with the packs. The only exception is if they do something weird like, for example, the LCG Netrunner. The base set, which is a little weird, has a full play set of some cards, 2 cards of some, and 1 of others. So you need to buy technically 3 of the base starter set to get a full play set of all those cards. Outside of that,
every LCG sort of requires you to have 2 or at least for a full play set.
Yeah, 2 makes sense to me because it's like, all right, 2 of every card. Like, I know it sucks. I wish it was all. But like the 3-1, because it's 3 for 11 cards.
I understand, but it is somewhat of a problem that still affects all LCGs.
Right.
I don't know.
Like that, I said, that's the only time singles. If they start doing that, that's a huge issue.
But I don't think they are going to.
No, I don't think so.
And I think overall, even though there are those setbacks, I think this is something they had to do.
Oh no, absolutely, because
it was getting too big.
Well, I mean, even when we were keeping things in stock at the store, we're like, okay, how many expansions does this have?
Right. And that was one of the other reasons they cited, was actually to make it easier for retailers to know what to carry, because there's just so much.
Yeah, I mean, especially with so many games out there. I mean, like, we know some of them were just like, all right, we've played 2 games of this. I'm not ready to make decks out of them yet. I haven't even used all the corporations in Netrunner.
Right, yeah. And as on a personal level, I'm more inclined to want to get into them because, there's less stuff there's less backlog I have to go through.
To be fair, we're also not doing tournaments, so therefore this doesn't affect us, so we're still going to use it.
Actually, same thing with Game of Thrones even. I was like, hey, it's a brand new game. I can start fresh. Maybe I'll just try it out.
Actually, that one I actually think does work better for new people because that's literally a new edition.
Right.
Like that one does actually affect new people.
And we should note the rotation policy won't affect the Lord of the Rings LCG.
Oh, right.
Because that's a co-op game, so there's no tournament scene. But yeah, I guess we should it was Game of Thrones, Star Wars, Cthulhu, Netrunner. I think that's all of them. Maybe missing one. But all the Fantasy Flight LCGs. It should be noted if you didn't realize Fantasy Flight owns the trademark to LCG, so
hence why we stated earlier the earlier debacle with the Versus system,
right?
And why the Doomtown is ECG, expandable card game.
So it'll be interesting to see now, which I bet will happen. Those other companies follow suit. Of course, Doomtown is very new, so they don't really have to worry about this yet. But sooner rather than later, I bet they are going to do it.
Well, yes, mostly because they already have the whole tournament thing. If we recall, we told you about they have metal badges. Right. They've already got the tournament thing ready, and people are already bidding on metal badges and stuff,
Yeah, so I could see that happening. But so overall, I mean, it was a big, crazy announcement.
Yeah.
A lot of people went nuts, and I think ultimately for the.
Well, what did most people say that you saw online?
I think people were reacting pretty positively. I didn't see any unhappy people.
Yeah.
They were all, I think, especially a lot of people were actually really happy about a second edition of Game of Thrones. Even
that was the one. Actually, that was the one thing I can see more people getting angry about.
Yeah, no, I think people are generally ready for change.
Because I feel the rotating. The only reason you get angry is if you do tournaments and you really like your one deck and you don't want to change anything. Which I'm like,
right.
You gotta learn to adjust.
I think players also recognize those problems that they addressed with the game itself. They are happy that they're going to be streamlining and fixing things.
Right. And I wouldn't be surprised if we start hearing more second editions.
Could be. Well,
that's actually, and they should do it for Netrunner and actually make a full playset in there.
I think we've said that before. But if you want to let us know what you think about this big announcement, maybe you like it, maybe you don't. Do you play Game of Thrones? Are you a tournament player? All that stuff. We want to hear your thoughts. You can drop us a comment on YouTube or on our website, or you can send us an email. Our email address is rollforcrit@gmail.com.
And of course, if you just want to send a little small blurb, there's always Twitter, @rollforcrit for the company Twitter, or our personal Twitters, @Dorkiryu,
@Quentz, @Ivan R. Hahn behind the camera, and @Foamy89 behind something somewhere. And check out all the news stories that we talked about this week. We post news every day, plus we sell so many games.
So many. Almost, I think we sell every single one of the LCGs we just talked about.
I think we probably do. On our website, which is rollforcrit.com. Great deals on new games. Holidays coming up. Get your orders in now. Thanks for watching.
That's it for now. We'll let you know who the World Championship winners are next week, as well as whatever else happens.
And coming up soon, just keep it in your heads, Board Game Geek Con. Not next week, but the week after.
Right, so we'll be keeping you up to date there, because we will be there. Yeah. Oh, so if you're there, send us a message. We should say hi.
Get your stuff planned out now. That's going to do it. It's been an awesome show. My name is Jonathan Estes.
I'm Will Keeler, and this is the Roll for Crit podcast.